But I think a big percentage of men today may not really have high value or think highly of themselves when it comes to this area in their life. And it could be for many reasons: past rejections, being put on spots where you experienced failure when it came to developing attraction with women. And in today's episode, I got to tell you, men today are measuring their dating status based on the opinion of others. Welcome to the Free and Redeemed podcast. I am your host, Simon Andrade, and here on this specific show, we tackle over key topics that every single Christian struggles with. We bring in guests, we bring in godly wisdom, and more importantly, we bring in scriptures in the Bible to help you enhance your walk with God, bring in confidence, and put you into the direction of freedom and grace by the power of the Holy Spirit. If you're new to this platform, I encourage you to subscribe. With all that being said, guys, let's get started with today's episode. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Free and Redeemed podcast. Happy 2025. Hope you guys enjoyed the holiday season, took a little bit of a break, but for those of you who don't know me and who are tuning in for the first time, welcome. My name is Simon. I am the host of the Free and Redeemed podcast, your future mental health counselor, and your self-esteem coach. Wow. Taking a little bit of a break was really good. Definitely much needed. Again, as I have mentioned before, for those, because man, I can't remember the last time I posted. I think it was right before the New Year's. And I really hope you guys enjoyed the last episode that I recorded, which was a new sub-series I'm trying to start and do projects on. What I like to call it is Analyze. So if you haven't checked out my recent video, analyzing cult psychology on the children of God, link will be in the description, or you could just simply check it out right here or here. Can't remember exactly where the screen was, but feel free to check it out. Really love your support, and let me know in the comments what you think about this series and what other stories you would like for me to cover. But today, man, there is a lot to talk about, or so much content that I have written and come up with for this new year. Also, before we even get started and actually get into today's subject, I want to apologize for those who, I guess apologize for my voice, allergies, or the weather has been killing me lately. So if I sound stuffed up, just letting you know, it took a lot of me to even just record this podcast. But yeah, apologize if I sound so stuffy through the microphone. Today's episode, there's a lot I have really wanted to kind of bring into not so much just the content or series of the Free and Redeemed podcast or the specific show, but what I really want my potential clients to really learn and listen about. And since my main focus of my coaching practice is in self-esteem, we have to remember a lot of the subjects we have been covering has definitely been an impact, but there's one specific subject I felt like I was really avoiding these past few months, and maybe a part of me was entertaining it a little bit, but another part of me was avoiding the ultimate subject of this. And that subject today is the subject of dating. Dating is such a huge subject that I feel like is covered a lot in different types of communities and environments. You know what? If I got to be honest, I would say it's definitely one of the top coaching niches that I have personally seen in today's time. I really don't have statistics to prove that, but think about it. I think most of the time there's a lot of advertisements, a lot of YouTube channels specifically dealing with dating or serious relationships, marriage. Why is dating such a huge subject? Well, I think the number one reason is because there are a lot, and I do mean this when I say this, a lot of issues and struggles that people face when it comes to dating. And in today's episode, I specifically want to talk more specifically to the men in this episode about the struggles of dating because, for one, I'm a young man myself. I'm single, and dating has been, I would say, a very extraordinary experience in my life, especially since now I'm in my early 30s. And what I have really learned now with my experience dating women versus when I was a lot younger in my teenage years. So, when I talk about the struggles men face with dating, there begs the question, what kind of struggles are there? What most people have really talked about, especially coming into this new year, is they say dating has changed. And I very well much agree with a lot of these content creators. Or dating has fallen off, dating's no longer the same. Men can't really stick to dating, and why there's such a high percentage of single men. And ultimately, we got to understand one thing. There's a wide variety of struggles men face in dating. And I know this because I have personally faced those struggles myself. And in today's episode, we won't be too long today, but we're going to specifically discuss top 3 reasons why you as a young single man, and you know what, maybe even someone who's married, you've been married for a few years, and maintaining a strong, consistent life with your spouse, that may be a struggle within itself. But today we're going to talk about the top 3 reasons why men are struggling with dating in the year 2025. When we talk about the issues that men face, we got to understand, well, what kind of issues are they? Well, some top results or top survey questions that were asked of what a man struggles with when it comes to expressing their dating life or investing in their dating life. These are the specific common struggles that have been covered in a recent survey study. I believe it was done by the Pew Research Center. It all comes down to the following: talking to girls, approaching girls, building connections, asking girls out on a date, asking your crush on a date, maintaining a relationship, building attraction, and so on and so forth. Basically, that's a lot to cover. But this specific study that was done in October 2019, so actually nearly 5 years ago, or actually, excuse me, nearly 6 years ago, survey study was done by a multitude of men that they sat down, they described their dating life and what they really would love to see to improve it. But the percentage as of October of 2019 states that 67% of men have stated that dating has become extremely difficult. While there was a little bit of a low half cut, 37% of men that stated that dating wasn't really difficult for them. So obviously, there's a little bit of a higher percentage here of why, of men stating that dating is, it's hard to balance a dating life or improve on a dating life. But I think the ultimate reason, especially, and they do not shy away from this in the study, is what really impacts that. What really causes a young guy, or I believe the ages were from 18 all the way to, I would say, mid 40s to 45 years old, of why men struggle to even go on a date with a girl, which is very tough nowadays. And the common research study that was done is it all really came down to one specific thing, which we are going to cover, but it really came down to their confidence. Confidence is so key today in our world, but you know what? A lot of people lack confidence in themselves and when it comes to the different areas of their life. And when it comes to men, this is something that I feel like naturally, not so much just women, but just about everybody has a common, or it's almost like a subconscious standard that we put on men, or men are, it's just like that expectation men receive when it comes to expressing themselves in some social way. And in today's episode, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to cover 3 reasons why men struggle to even build and grow in their dating life. And starting off with number 1 of why this may be a struggle is because number 1, men are pleasure focused. This is a very kind of like hit you in the face or punch in the face, this is a big attention getter that I want to start off with. Reason for that is because this is something I believe is so common today in so many young men today, rather if the ages are from young adults to full grown adults to older adults and men. And the reason for this is because it is so true. And I don't feel like a lot of men today in this generation realize that this may be the case. Men are pleasure focused. Single men, and yes, as I mentioned earlier, married men are addicted to one common thing in life. What is that? It's the term called dopamine. We all have dopamine. Dopamine, I mean, this is a very simple definition. A lot of us know what we're talking about here. Dopamine is a hormone that every single person has, including men, and it's a reward pleasing hormone. Basically, it's how our body responds of seeking something that gets us going, that makes us feel good. in the inner parts of our body. This can mean a lot of things, but what really draws us to dopamine? What gets that going? Well, let me tell you what men are mostly attracted to is by what they see. It's how what they see and how our brain responds to that. This is what really gets men going. I mean, come on, this is basic surface level cliche stuff I'm talking about here. But it could see, I mean, if a guy sees a cigarette, someone smoking a cigarette, and he becomes addicted, dopamine is wanting that hit, wanting that fix of what? Getting that hit, getting that, that puff of smoke. And it's the same exact thing that we see in dating today. Men are naturally attracted to what they see. And in this case, we're talking about men who are attracted to women. And men who build attraction to women, it's like we find the struggle of, what causes the struggle of men growing in their dating or growing when it comes to talking to a woman. And it's simply by what they see. Now, this is why I think we see more female models, why we see a lot more active things that have to do with women, and what I mean by this is why we see a lot of Instagram models more than we see male Instagram models. Why we see a lot of like, things that do come off provocative. Why we see, it's just like so many things. Why we have a lot of OnlyFans. Why pornography mostly deals with women because they know this is what men are going to invest their time in if they have this unhealthy behavior pattern with their dopamine hormone. When I say men are pleasure focused, I really feel like this is the case today when it comes to men who are single or married. I feel like this is why we see so many men who are mindlessly scrolling on different types of social media platforms through Instagram, through TikTok, through Twitter, maybe even through YouTube, or why we're seeing so many men invest so much money, so much time into pornography, watching porn for hours, or it's just like needing that fixed to look at pornography. Why we see so many men who have this self-pleasing response when they see a beautiful woman on social media or porn and feel the urge to masturbate or to self-please themselves. And of course, this is definitely not an episode for children, so keep in mind, I mean, this can be a little bit explicit. But this is why men are so self-pleasing. And what's that number one reason why? It's because pleasure is so easy to access. There's no need for commitment when it comes to pleasing yourself, to making yourself feel good in the moment. But there are some consequences and there are some negative effects when it comes to self pleasure. Is it's maybe easy to access, but at the end of the day, it does not put you into reality. It actually makes you avoid reality. Just devalue what's going on, really going on in your life. What's a simple term that we call that? Fantasy. It is so easy to build a fantasy up here in your mind. What's the most beneficial thing about fantasy is it makes sense to you in the moment. But I think the negative parts about fantasy is eventually you realize it's not real. And I think that's why we see a lot of people who come in, they struggle with addiction. They struggle with what they're looking at. Obviously, pornography, that is one psychological subject within itself. But this is why I think we see a lot of people who are addicted to porn. Usually, they are not in the best place emotionally as well. And why is that? Because fantasy is only a temporary fix, if you really think about it. And if you are struggling to build confidence in your life, if you're struggling to really understand what it takes to grow and learn how to effectively date, sometimes we have to ask ourselves the question, are we more focused on pleasure? The number one risk of dating today is feeling some sort of pleasurable experience with someone, or obviously, we're in this case, we're talking about men, is feeling some sort of pleasurable experience with a woman, whether if that's flirting, holding hands, being affectionate, and maybe kissing, doing something that's obviously physical, that is a pleasurable experience. The toughest reality about dating is there's always a risk of rejection. There's always a risk of getting your feelings hurt. And why are we so drawn to a temporary fix versus an actual relationship fix or an actual relationship? Is because pleasure is simply avoiding the risk of rejection. Looking at pornography is avoiding the risk of getting your feelings hurt. Scrolling through Instagram and looking at a beautiful Instagram model is much more easier than getting put in the friend zone by one of your crushes. Choosing to fall into masturbation again and again and again and again is so much easier than committing to a woman and actually building a strong bond with her over time. Despite that, there will be frustrations, there will be negative traits that may not fit your needs, and vice versa with her. And this is what we have to learn and understand when it comes to why men struggle with dating, is because of how easy it is to please themselves versus actually setting into a reality where they learn how to develop confidence, learn how to build in relationships with the women that they meet in life. You know what also affects you when it comes to pleasure is it's very difficult to develop a social life if this is what is defining your life right now, if you're so addicted to pleasure. Social anxiety is a true thing. And that's why, in the second point of why men struggle with dating, is because number two, men are fear focused today. As I mentioned, social anxiety is a real thing today. It's an emotional response that a person, it could be a man and a woman, but in this case, it's a social emotional response that a person feels when they interact with a certain group. And in this case, I really want to talk about what is really affecting men, why men are feeling so fearful today when it comes to developing a structured dating life that a lot of us desire. Because I think the toughest part about dating is a lot of people desire it. You cannot sit there and tell me, hey, I don't desire dating. I don't really care. Sometimes, rarely, I find people that are content with their dating life, content being single, not have some sort of desire of being in a relationship, meeting somebody. And why is that? Because that's what God created us to do. We have souls, and this soul, the soul that we have in our heart, is something that we desire to bond with other people. Everybody loves the experience of dating, even if you've never been in a relationship before. I mean, even growing up when I was a young teenager, I used to always see people get into, I mean, I was only in middle school at the time, but I remember when I would see people in my sixth, my seventh, and eighth grade year get into relationships. I used to really entertain the idea of getting into a relationship at that young age. Even back then, when I was going through puberty, a puberty time in my life. Back then, I used to always think how special it would be. But what really held me back as a young child? It was fear. There's so much thing that it can impact us. And it's fear. Fear of what? Maybe the common cliche thing to say is fear of rejection. But there is so much more that goes to that of why men who may be my age in their early 30s, their 20s, teenage years, or whatever age group it may be, we naturally have a fear to this concept or area in our life. And it could be simply expanding of the subject of rejection and understanding that here's the thing, if we have a soul, we not only have to understand that we have a soul that desires to be loved, that desires to be pleased, but we know that we also have a soul that could easily be hurt, that it could easily be put in a position that we did not really expect to be put in. And most single men I encounter and I talk to today who have all kinds of issues, have all kinds of insecurities and things, when it really comes down to the fearful side, it can include multiple situations that just includes approaching a girl, going up and just having a conversation with a beautiful woman, talking to someone they have a crush on, asking a girl out on a date, texting a girl, communicating interest, expressing some form of communication, and developing an actual committed relationship. These are things that naturally we just think about, but we don't really know how to transition into that period. Why? Because fear is like that gate we cannot get through. And a lot of times I feel like men don't really like to put themselves out there. And I'm not just talking about the introverted. I'm talking about men who may even be attractive physically, may be extroverted in some form, some way with other people and guy friends. But when it actually comes, because dating is actually taking an extra step of developing a more stronger, committed, romantic interest relationship. It's not like you're just making a friend, you are developing a committed relationship with the woman that you are attracted to. And this is something I could say I used to struggle with all the time when I was a child, is fear. How can we overcome fear? How could we understand that fear is probably playing a huge role on our confidence and how we could really develop confidence when it comes to talking to women and building a committed relationship? Well, let me tell you, today's episode, as I said, it's going to be short, but at the same time, I really want to discuss something that is very important of what I have personally learned, what I have experienced of rebuilding your self esteem, learning how to respect yourself more, and just ultimately becoming rejection proof. And what I mean by rejection proof, I'm not talking about, hey, you're going to develop this game, you're going to develop this amazing strategy with women. And oh, it's just like women are never going to reject you again. I'm not talking about that. What I am talking about is rejection proof, meaning even when you face rejection, you know how to use that to your advantage and actually develop you and build you into the quality man you deserve to be. And why men fear rejection, I think, comes down to one thing, and that is their mindset. What I have learned when it comes to improving in dating today in 2025 is a lot of men today may not have the right mindset when it comes to how they approach rejection, how they respond to rejection, how they respond to attraction, how they respond to flirting and social anxiety and creating friendships, creating what is really valuable in the subject of dating today. And the third and final reason I want to discuss of why men are struggling with dating in this specific year leading up into 2025 is number three, men are ego focused. That is a big point I really want to end off in today's episode. Men are ego focused. What determines if a man is going to be successful in dating or not is really depending on how he feels about himself. And I got to tell you, maybe I don't have a exact statistical study on how men feel about themselves, but I got to tell you, there's probably a huge variety, a huge percentage of men who may be listening to this video, listening to this podcast, who you have a smile on your face at your job. You have a smile on your face when you're around friends. You come off very chill, whatnot, when you're at the gym, when you're at the grocery store, around your family. But I think a big percentage of men today may not really have high value or think highly of themselves when it comes to this area in their life. And it could be for many reasons: past rejections, being put on spots where you experienced failure when it came to developing attraction with women. And in today's episode, I got to tell you, men today are measuring their dating status based on the opinion of others. That's what it all comes down to at the end of the day. And I know this is something I really had to make a realization about in my own life is how you feel about yourself really should not be based on how other people view you. And yes, that does include women. That does include the beautiful women you're seeing at the gym, at Instagram, at your church, at your school, whatever it may be. That is something men have a hard time grasping. And I have seen this with different men I have sat down with. I've let them open up to me. And yes, it's not like these men are ugly or they don't have confidence in how they dress, how they do their hair, if they're even going to the gym and working out. These are men I have met who you look at them and you're like, "Are you kidding me? You struggle with this in your life?" And people used to think that about me when I would really struggle with my self-confidence. Like, "Geez, Simon, that you struggle with that?" But it's a real issue today in dating is men don't think highly of themselves because they may not have the best approach or the best reputation with women, or at least they think they don't. And the simple term of what we call that today is ego. Ego is basically your life status, your value, your reputation, everything about yourself is all based on how people view you. And if people view you in the way you want to be valued, in a way, it's like you pat yourself on the back, but at the end of the day, you still have that baggage of low self esteem. You still have that baggage of insecurity. A common thing I would really see with men when it comes to how they view themselves with ego, it's like there are common reasons of why you probably desire to be with an Instagram model, why you desire to get the prettiest girl in school, why all these things. It's just like it's a selfish reason and it's not deeply intentional. You want to show off people your dating life. You want to show people, hey, look what I can do. I have game. I do hookups, and it's just like you brag about yourself constantly. And you know what? As easy as it is to have a mindset like that, you got to understand it's not really helping you at the end of the day. And there are consequences for men who are more ego focused in their dating versus men who are value focused. There's two big differences here. And we're going to discuss how to find value in yourself in a future episode. But what are the consequences that a lot of men are facing today when it comes to their expressing their ego or being focused on their ego? Well, one, let me tell you, a very common one is you start to put women on a pedestal. You start to look at women as an object. It's something that could easily just please you instead of learning how to develop a healthy relationship and healthy behavior patterns within yourself and developing that with her. You start to become needy for very small breadcrumb type things, which includes attention, just temporary pleasure, just one night stands or everything like that. But you don't really know how to fully value yourself because you become very needy towards a woman. I mean, if she even just smiles at you, sometimes it's just like that alone just kind of fulfills that ego. It could be other things too. It makes you narcissistic. It makes you so selfish, and it literally closes a gap of truly building a relationship with a woman. Instead of growing, you're just downgrading and you're building dysfunction, even if a woman ends up becoming attractive to you. You learn how to become manipulative, but at the same time, as I mentioned, you're not really doing anyone a favor, not even yourself. So, in today's episode, I really want to cover the three topics we looked at. Number one, guys, we're pleasure focused. Ask yourself the question, how much social media am I consuming a day? If you're a single man, be real. Be super honest with yourself. How many times do you scroll on Instagram and you see a beautiful woman? You have no relationship with her. You haven't even approached her. You don't even know. It's just like she has no idea you exist. But deep down inside, you're allowing fantasy to build inside. What it would like to be in a relationship with her. But you don't know her flaws. You don't know who she is as a person. You're just attracted to by what you see. So you indulge on what pleases you individually. Is that healthy? Of course it's not. So therefore, number two, we're fear focused. Ask yourself this question. If you are feeling lonely right now in life, if you don't like where you're at, you're seeing all your friends, your guy friends get girlfriends, you're seeing your friends get married, everything, and you're upset because you feel like women don't notice you, ask yourself the question, are you even willing to put yourself out there? Are you even willing to talk to a girl? Have you even asked a girl out on a date? Does that even just the whole idea of what I just said, does that even scare you? Does it freak you out? Just the thought of what I just said. And number three, why do you even want a girlfriend? Why do you even care? How do you even feel about yourself? How do you even define yourself if you don't have a girlfriend? Do you even know what it takes to grow as a man and grow into an actual intimate relationship with a girl versus simping over her 24/7? What does all that mean to you? And if this is something you're struggling with today, I really want to invite you to schedule a one on one call with me where we will actually sit down, understand what your low self-esteem may be, the things that you are struggling with your own insecurities, and we are going to create a healthy plan that's going to help you not just improve in dating, but so much more than that. Develop your own purpose, what you are looking to do in life. Develop what really defines you as a godly man. You can schedule that on the description and book a actual free one-on-one call with me and see if we would be a good fit. But guys, I want to thank you for joining me for today's episode. And tune in next time as we will continue this dating series. And there is so much content that we are going to discuss with the Free and Redeemed podcast. God bless.